While street photography can be done with almost any camera, from mobile phones to medium format, there are a few characteristics to look for when choosing your gear. A small size, easy-to-use manual controls, a quiet shutter, and a fast response time are all very much appreciated when capturing slices of life in public spaces. Other features like a tilting screen, a built-in ND filter, a bright viewfinder, and weather sealing are nice, but not deal breakers for most photographers. Ultimately, you'll need to decide what's important to you and choose accordingly, but if you're not sure where to start, this video will hopefully be of use. So without any further ado, let's explore the 5 best cameras for street photography. I'll leave links to all discussed cameras in the video, you can check them for more information and the latest prices. Starting our list with Fujifilm X100V. Back in 2010, Fujifilm released the original X100, which featured a groundbreaking set of features including a hybrid optical electronic viewfinder and an APS-C sensor. It quickly became a runaway hit. The X100V is the 5th iteration of this camera, and over the years Fujifilm has steadily refined it for street photography. Aperture, shutter speed, ISO, and exposure compensation each have their own control dials, which makes them dead simple to adjust on the fly. The hybrid viewfinder lets you shoot with an old-school rangefinder or an ultra-modern mirrorless, and the flip-out touchscreen makes it easy to compose from low angles. Other benefits for street photographers include a 23mm fixed lens mated to an APS-C sensor, which results in a 35mm equivalent field of view, perfect for street photography. The lens is sharp and bright with a maximum aperture of f2, so you can take pictures with ease and never worry about missing a shot due to poor light. The built-in leaf shutter makes photography virtually silent, which is great if you value discretion. The X100V is small but not exactly pocketable, and it has a full suite of customizable buttons and dials to suit your style. If you want a virtually no compromises camera designed from the ground up for street shooters, the Fuji X100V is a fantastic option. It is, in my opinion, the best camera for street photography today. At number 2, it's Ricoh GR3. The Ricoh GR line of cameras has been a favorite of street photographers for years, and with good reason. The 3rd iteration of this venerable camera series continues the tradition of being small in size, but packing quite a punch, and it offers nearly everything a street photographer could want. An 18mm lens mated to the APS-C sensor results in a 28mm field of view. This is a bit wider than the Fujifilm X100V, and more like what you might see on a mobile phone. Some people like the wider angle, but I find the 35mm field of view much more pleasing and versatile. Image quality is outstanding, and high ISO shots look great. Lots of photographers swear by the Ricoh black and white JPEGs, so if you like to shoot in monochrome, this might be a good option. The Ricoh GR3 has plenty of buttons, but not as many dedicated controls as the Fujifilm X100V and other cameras on this list. It's not quite as easy to rapidly change settings, but many custom functions can be mapped to specific buttons to make things easier. The maximum f2.8 aperture isn't as bright as the Fuji X100V, but the camera compensates with built-in image stabilization. This makes low-light photography a bit more practical, as long as you are shooting still subjects. A non-tilting touchscreen makes compassing shots a cinch, but the lack of a dedicated viewfinder is certainly something to consider if you prefer compassing your shots by bringing the camera up to your eye. At number 3, it's Sony RX107. The Sony RX100 line has been around for many years and has gone through myriad iterations to adapt to the demands of photographers. The most dramatic change in recent years is the lens, which used to have a much smaller focal range, but now goes all the way from 24mm to 200mm in equivalent 35mm measurements. This makes the RX107 an outstanding camera for many genres, including street photography. While the lens isn't nearly as bright as the Fuji X105 or Ricoh GR3's, its maximum f2.8 aperture on the wide end is great for daytime street photography. This quickly shrinks to a maximum f4.5 aperture as you zoom in, but most street photographers typically shoot wide as opposed to telephoto. The 1-inch sensor in the Sony RX107 is what enables this camera to have such a versatile lens. And while it's no match for its APS-C and full-frame siblings' image quality and high ISO performance, Sony makes up for it in terms of sheer technological prowess. The RX107 camera is packed to the gills with features normally found on high-end mirrorless cameras, costing thousands of dollars. Autofocus is snappy and reliable, and includes subject tracking and IAF, video recording is outstanding, and the pop-up viewfinder is a boon for street photographers. A rear touchscreen, a relatively robust set of manual controls, and several customizable buttons mean you can set the camera to shoot how you want to get the street photos you might otherwise miss. At the end of the day, the reason this camera earns a spot on my list is due to its unique combination of features and size. No other camera offers so much in so small a body. At number 4, it's Panasonic Lumix LX102. While the Panasonic Lumix LX102 isn't as feature-packed as other cameras on the list, it nonetheless acquits itself nicely in the world of street photography. It's easy to use and packs fast autofocus and responsive controls, including dedicated dials for shutter speed and exposure compensation. The built-in 24 to 75mm, 35mm equivalent lens is great for wide-angle shots, as well as tighter crops, and the bright f1.7 aperture is perfect for low-light photography, though it does shrink to f2.8 when zoomed to 75mm. Street photographers will love the small size of this camera, though the lens does stick out from the body enough to cause problems in a pocket or handbag. Panasonic packs a lot of technology into its cameras, and the Lumix LX102 has a range of high-tech features that make it well suited to street photographers. The autofocus points cover nearly the entire frame so you can focus almost anywhere, and built-in crop modes let you frame your shots in a variety of different aspect ratios. The touchscreen makes focusing a breeze, which can be useful for on-the-spot candids, and the electronic viewfinder is great for thoughtfully compassing your photos. Street photographers will also appreciate the aperture ring, which gives you full control over the aperture without requiring a trip to the camera menus. At number 5, it's Canon G1X Mark III. The Canon G1X Mark III combines the best of compact cameras and their larger sensor DSLR mirrorless brethren. A result is an imaging tool that is quite well suited to many types of street photography. The G1X Mark III's overall appeal is a bit hampered by its size, as well as some limitations of the built-in lens, but anyone after a street photography camera would be wise to consider it. The huge APS-C image sensor on the G1X III makes for superb shots in a variety of lighting conditions, and a long list of impressive technical specifications makes this camera great for street shots. Compassing is simple with a rear LCD, and Canon goes one step further than most by offering a fully articulating touchscreen. Autofocus isn't particularly noteworthy, especially when tracking moving subjects, but that's usually not a primary concern for street photographers. The 24 to 72mm, 35mm equivalent focal range of the zoom lens means you can get wide shots and street portraits, but the aperture range on the lens is definitely less than ideal. The f2.8 maximum aperture, when zoomed out, is respectable, but the f5.6 aperture when zoomed in severely limits this camera's functionality in low light. However, high ISO shots look great, and street photographers will love the abundance of control dials and function buttons to access commonly used settings. The electronic viewfinder is crisp and sharp, and while not as nice as Canon's high-end cameras, it's certainly good enough for street photography. With that, we come to the end of the review. We understand that buying a camera for street photography is not easy, and it's a very high possibility that you might overlook the key factors for buying a quality camera. Through our buying guide, we are certain that you'd have a crystal clear idea of what to look for while making the purchase. Our list will undoubtedly help you in finding the camera that you'd want for shooting quality pictures and videos.